Today we will be discussing the physiotherapy industry, and we are fortunate enough to be joined by Hing, who has been a practicing physio for more than 30 years. Murray has had some very interesting clients, including world-class tennis player Kevin Anderson and Olympic gold medalist Lisa Carrington. Fun fact about Murray, he has been playing tennis his entire life, and now with his job, he is fortunate enough to rub shoulders with some of the biggest names in tennis history. Could you just explain what you do and what a typical day in the life of you would be?
I'm a physiotherapist really in the medical and health industry. I look upon human panel beating, people that get hurt, that we look at putting them back together again. In the past, that was pretty much what physio was about. It was more a little bit the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. But moving forward in today's sort of era, physiotherapy is about prevention as well, being proactive and helping to prevent people from getting injuries as well as fixing them once they have them.
Right. And so for you, is it just seeing clients every day, or is it a lot of research?
There's a combination of the two. Yeah, you're always continuing with your research and your learning, but in most days it's just, your clients come in, you're fully booked, you work through them, and you take each person as they come.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say is the difference between being a public physio and being a private physio? Is there any difference?
Yeah, there is quite a bit of difference. In the public sector, you do a lot of the physiotherapy that isn't seen by the public. Things like respiratory, neurology, cardiothoracic. Those are sort of areas where you're treating asthmatics, people that have had strokes or traumatic brain injuries, post-surgery, post-heart surgery. So the hospital physios tend to see a lot of that. And then private tends to be more musculoskeletal and sports medicine, which is a little bit of the glamour aspect of physiotherapy.
And you are in the private sector?
The glamour, if you want to put it.
And so what are some of the different roles within the industry in terms of maybe the opportunities that you can get once you become a physiotherapist?
Look, physiotherapy is a profession that has unlimited areas in which you can work. So kind of the world's your oyster. You can travel the world, you can work with sports teams, Olympians. You can go on and treat and work with, the top surgeons in the world, help them with their patients in rehab. So you can go from anywhere from the starship where you're working with children right through to the elderly in homes. So the amount of work that physio is able to do in the public health system is very, very vast.
And I guess that's right, because a lot of people think that only athletes need physios, but really everyone needs physios. So the range of clients that you have spans right through.
Oh, it's huge. You can have a look at the elite sports, weekend warriors, the everyday working man that hurts themselves at work, right through to corporate health, where you actually have a lot of postural problems, especially now in the workplace where computers are a lot more prevalent. People sit during the day, whereas 30 years ago we didn't have computers as much, and people were active in their workplace.
And so for you, would you be able to just touch on some of the experiences that you have? Because obviously you've had a lot of experience and have a lot of expertise in the field, so you've had a lot of opportunities, and I think some of our listeners and viewers might be quite interested in some of the opportunities you've had.
Well, yeah, I'd say I'm very fortunate. Been around a long time, so I started way back where physios didn't get paid to work in sports. It was done for free, and it was your way of cutting your teeth in order to get clinical experience, to get your name out there. I've been fortunate enough to work with Olympians, with world-class tennis players, with a whole lot of individuals that really have opened my eyes and helped me to make have a very, very, I suppose, good reputation and a very appreciated reputation. been very lucky the amount of people that I have seen. I think the best part of my work is the fact that when you are seeing somebody, that you make a change to help people. So there's huge job satisfaction. So you get the variety of people you see, you get huge job satisfaction. It's a good profession to be in.
So just to break it up in terms of our serious questions and some funner questions, what was the worst career advice that you've ever been given when you were trying to work out what you wanted to do?
I think the worst career advice I was told when I was young was don't work as long, try to work smarter. And I know what they meant by saying that if you use your mind, that you can achieve things in a better way. However, when it comes down to health and physio, you actually have to do time in the field. So the 10,000 hours is really, really important. No matter how smart you work, you really don't learn until you've done your 10,000 hours. So you have to work long, you have to work hard. You need to get the clinical hours behind you to gain clinical experience. And if you think that, I'll work smarter and I'll be able to be as good in, 2,000 hours, then you're kind of really, kidding yourself because you won't.
And I think that's true for any profession where it is more about practicing and not just about what you read, because you can read all about the body in physiotherapy school, but until you're actually standing there with someone's injury, you just won't know.
Yeah, that's very, very true. But in physio, because you are so hands-on, that experience that you have in time in treating patients is so valuable. You can't pay for that.
And so, was it hard for you to decide what you wanted to do when you were in high school, or did you know that you wanted to be a physiotherapist?
Yeah, I sort of knew I wanted to be involved in the health industry, to whether it was medical, being a doctor, and if it was more in sports medicine as opposed to illness. So I looked at medical school in the beginning, but really as I sort of got into my sports, I realised that sports injuries was treated by physios. So I kind of stumbled across the profession that way, looked closer into it and sort of thought, wow, this is actually what I want to do. So I've been quite fortunate enough, to be able to work in an industry which I have a passion for.
And I think that that's what we're trying to do, right, is find people's passions before they get into something that they find they're not passionate about and then have to make a career change later on.
Yeah, that's very true, and especially too if you go into medicine or health and you're doing a 4 to 5 year degree, and to finish that degree, and it's a hard degree, there's a lot to learn, and if you go into that degree and find that at the end of it it's not what you want to be, it's a lot of wasted years, I think.
A lot of experience learnt, but also not what you want to do.
Correct.
So another fun round is just, what was one of your most embarrassing moments in high school?
Yeah, I think the most embarrassing thing would probably be your fashion sense. Yeah, coming through from the 80s, fashion wasn't exactly the best. So yeah, there's a lot of, I think, pictures and videos of us when we were working in the 80s, and you kind of look back on that and go, wow, what was I thinking?
I think a lot of people think that as well, don't worry. So you've been in the profession for a long time. I'm sure that your favourite parts now and what you said at the start of this interview have since developed from when you first started out in the industry. So when you first started out as a junior physio, what were some of the highlights for you back then?
I think the highlights for me were being able to rub shoulders with some of the older physios and be able to observe from them. Seeing them as mentors, and I think I do remember, going to sports meetings and conferences and sitting there just absorbing everything they had to say, watching them work, watching the achievements that they got, and I think that as a young physiotherapist was absolutely invaluable. I would jump at the chance to give up my weekends in order to go and help for free so that I could learn from them. I think really that was a big highlight for me early in my career.
And that's also helping you get your 10,000 hours in, I guess, in terms of learning and experience.
Yeah, very much so. Plus you network, you touch base, you get to meet the athletes and the coaches and the administrators that are involved who get to know you. So then opportunities can, come your way. So the big highlight for me in my career, I love tennis, working with a number of the top tennis players in the world. If I had to name a few, there's Kevin Anderson, who got to number 10, the Bryan brothers, the world number 1 doubles. Agnieszka Radwanska is number 4 in the world. To be able to sit and have coffee with Roger Federer and Nadal. Those are highlights for me, being a tennis fanatic. That kind of is my bucket.
And that's also the glamour aspect that you were talking
Yes.
about as well. And so, moving on from that glamour aspect, while there are glamorous parts, you get to meet celebrities, your favourite athletes, there are obviously some hard parts in the industry. So what are some of the tougher, more challenging aspects?
I think the tougher, challenging aspects for people looking at the physio industry is the fact that it is more than a job. It's long hours. You need to be dedicated. It's continuous learning. And to think that it's going to be your 9 to 5 and you're not going to work too hard, you might be a little bit sort of, I suppose, shocked to come into the profession, because in health and in medicine, it is hard. I suppose the other aspect too of it is often you'll meet people that are in pain. And so that aspect, you need to have empathy to be able to understand their pain, to be able to gain their confidence so you can treat them. So, the job has a fair amount of, I suppose what you'd call, you need this mental hardness there to be able to get through those tough days.
And just again, to break up our more serious questions, another fun question is, what makes you weird? And that can be within the industry, within your job, or just in general.
What makes me weird? I would say it'd be my obsessive compulsive. Think of Sheldon at a Big Bang. That's kind of a little bit like me. But in saying that aspect of my personality is what makes a good health professional. So you're ordered, you're structured, you have a plan, you execute the plan well, and you do the job that needs to be done. I think that's really important, being as a physiotherapist, that you are reliable, that you're able to, when you take a client on, you're able to execute your plan and be able to deliver what you say you can. And I think that's very important when you're treating your patients.
Definitely, and I'm sure that your clients really appreciate that.
I hope so.
So in terms of our viewers and listeners who are maybe interested in getting into the physio industry, they'll have to go through physio school. So what is required in that, and what advice could you give to people who are either studying currently or are looking to get into that study?
Well, physiotherapy, medicine, you need to be good at your sciences, your biologies, your chemistry, your physics. So that is important in order to get that base background behind you. I think that it's important that you have a love to work with people, and that you're comfortable communicating. If you're a very shy, sort of verbal person, I don't think that physiotherapy is the right profession for you, because your personality won't fit. You have to be able to sit, discuss, communicate, gain your patient's confidence in you in order to treat them. So I think that those would be key attributes to be looking at. If you're high in the arts, you can still be a good physio, but I think having a degree in history is going to make it harder to get through physiotherapy school.
And I guess the thing is that it is a very customer-facing job. You are talking to people all the time, and if you can't communicate, if you can't understand how someone's communicating their injury, then you're not going to be doing your job very well.
Yeah, I think that, to me, when I speak to the younger physios and talk to them about the profession, the key thing is you need to be able to listen. I think that's the most important thing. And your patient will tell you everything about their condition. So if you are a good listener, it makes your assessment accuracy a lot better, and your clinical reasoning can be so much better, and your outcomes are better. So I think that is probably one of the key things.
And in terms of physio school, what are some of the more challenging aspects of it? And do you find that what you learned in physio school is very similar to what you do when you're actually practicing?
Yeah, well, physio school, the way I like to sort of see it is it's teaching physio students the alphabet. So when they come out after a 4-year degree, they can say the alphabet. But to work in the clinical field and have good clinical experience and be good in the profession, you need to be able to write a book. So it'll take, time, so that when you come out of physio school, your first year is learning how to put those letters into words, and then stringing those words into sentences, and then those sentences into paragraphs, and finally into writing a book. So you really do need 5 to 6 years, and as I said again, that 10,000 hours of patient numbers in front of you. The more you see, the better you get.
And so for maybe our physio students who might be studying right now, do you have any advice to them in terms of things that they can do to start that 10,000 hours before they maybe even finish physio school?
Yeah, I think that if you've got an interest in it, to start ringing clinics, the hospitals, going in. They will more than happily allow you as a student to come in and observe, watch, have a look in the hospitals and see what the physios do in the different departments, and see what aspects of physiotherapy really interest you, as well as private practice. Going down to your local football team and asking the physio that works for the club if you could hang around and watch and observe and see. So those are the things that I think is really important, that you've got to be able to experience and see it yourself. You can read about it, but it's not the same. And then you'll get a good taste. Is this a profession that you really want to be in?
And so for our last fun round before we finish off, what job would you be in if you weren't a physio?
What job would I be in? I think that with my interest in sports, I'd probably go into something in the sports industry, maybe sports management, sports administration, something like that, where I can still get involved, and maybe if I was looking at a completely different random thing, business.
What type of business?
That I'm not too sure of, but one of the things I think when you're going into physio school as well, that it's good all well being a health professional, but you need to be business minded. So especially in private practice, if you don't have a business mind, it is hard to run a successful practice, because you do need that aspect in order to be successful.
And so just going into maybe the industry, what are some things you think that people might not know about the industry?
I think that what they don't know is the depth of physiotherapy, to what it can actually do. There are so many segments of physiotherapy which are untouched, and the public isn't aware that this is what physiotherapy can do. I suppose in my example, I did my master's in migraine headache, which is an area where most people with migraines don't think of a physiotherapist. I'm unique in that respect, that I've developed a migraine treatment protocol, which is the only type of in the world. We have a very, very good success rate. And again, it's only because with my experience, I decided to use my clinical knowledge to try and find a way to treat migraine patients better. And that in the physio profession is something, as a budding young physio, the world is your oyster. You can actually come out, do your clinical time, have a look at a specialty that you are interested in, and to be able to develop treatment techniques and protocols which are unique in the world. I think the thing to say about physio, especially in New Zealand, we're very, very highly regarded. So Australian, New Zealand, Canadian physios are rated as, or regarded as the best physios in the world and leading. So if you can do well in New Zealand or Australia, you know that you'll probably be out there in the world leading. So I think that's a nice platform to know that if you go through physio school in New Zealand, you actually are well regarded worldwide.
Oh, definitely, and I think that's probably very invaluable information for those physio students who are slogging behind their computers with the big textbooks. And just going off that migraine research that you did, I guess that kind of leads into the fact that while you are practicing, you're also always researching and always learning. So is there can you give us a percentage of what is what?
Yeah, in the profession you have what they call CPD, which is continual practice development. And so you have to log up a certain amount of hours every year in some form of self-directed learning, conferences, courses, peer reviews, attending physio workshops. So those sorts of things are really mandatory. I'm a physio that likes to lead in the profession. So for me, I'm always looking at different ways of improving. Why do we use this technique? Why can't we do something which is a little bit more innovative? I think to finish on that is that, if you've read Steve Jobs' book, he talks about folklore, that computers, Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft, they did folklore with computers because it was just, that's the way it's always done. And he decided that he wanted to find a better way, wanted to be innovative. So he went in the opposite direction, which he was criticised for. And look at Apple now, world leaders. So I think what is really important is, as a physio and as a physio student coming through, be innovative. Look outside the square. Don't always believe in folklore. Folklore gives you a very, very base, and it's a very simplistic base. But challenge yourself. It's a profession which allows you to challenge yourself, allows you to push the boundaries, and allows you to make things better. And especially if you can help somebody recover, be out of pain, and overcome sickness faster, then it's a win-win for everyone.
And so the last question that we'll always end on is, what is some of your advice for people who are working out what they want to do, regardless of whether they want to go into the physiotherapy industry or whatever industry?
I think if you're looking at a career, it's all very well because there's so much out there now. The world's the oyster for this young generation coming through. But I think if you're looking at making a decision on what do I want to do, what do I want to be, the best advice I'd give is have a close look at yourself. Know who you are first. If you know who you are, then it's much easier when you look across the broad selection of sort of jobs and occupations out there, that you'll see things that are a little bit of you. And then that makes it easier to be selective about the choices of what you would like to look into. But if you don't know who you are, it is very hard to then go out there and go, well, what job do I want to be? Because you actually don't know who you are. And it's hard to then fit yourself into an occupation or see yourself in an occupation, when you still don't know yourself.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today,
Thank you for having me.